Follow the 4Corners Podcast on social media. Like us on Facebook, 4Corners Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Podcast 4Corners. And check us out on Instagram, 4Corners Podcast. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review.
I want to take this time to apologize to the television audience for what they're about to see.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4 Corners Podcast. I'm Shad here with Matt and Brad. Guys, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Shad, and I'm excited about tonight's episode.
Oh, yeah.
I am
Brad?
doing well as well, and I am excited for this show, too.
We are all three excited for this. I think we're going to have some fun. First, we want to get our shout-outs handled. The first one is going to go to Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand, collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code 4CornersPodcast. That is the number 4, capital C in Corners, capital P in Podcast, no spaces. Save 10% off your order. They have some new shirts out. They've got a Harley Davidson.
They have a sale, too, right?
Yeah, there's the Slam into Summer sale where you can save for a lot of shirts. You're saving $5 right off the top, and our promo code does stack with that sale.
They have a lot. They have shirts that they have a lot of shirts I kind of want, which is bad because I'm like at max capacity almost for shirts, for wrestling shirts. I have so many. They've
got one that's kind of the WWF New Generation style. They've got a Harley Davidson style. They've got a Daft Punk style. Wrestling is my love language. Instead of OnlyFans, it's only Marks. Like, there's a lot of cool shirts here. So we gotta say. Oh, and then there's also what is this one? It's Ask Me About Pro Wrestling. So, and those are just some of the new ones. They still have some older ones kicking around too. And our other shout out means that we hand it to Matt.
Yeah, our other shout out is to Orlando Colon. You know, Orlando Colon, Shad, would be my number one pick in any draft out there. Even like the NFL draft that's coming up soon.
Why, Matt? That sounds like a segue.
It sounds like a segue, because it is.
All right. So tonight, I'm going to give a quick overview, and we're going to let Brad dive into some particulars. Tonight, we are doing a wrestling draft. We each have our own regional promotion. We are drafting who we want for it, and then Brad's going to give us a few more particulars.
Yeah, so the way the draft's going to work, the draft order is Matt is first, I am second, Shad is third. It's going to be a snaking draft. If you don't know what that means when we get to the end of a round, the person that picks last then turns around and picks first. So there are some basic rules to this. You can take a tag team together if you forfeit your next pick because you're taking two people. Because we are regional promotions, we have a limited allotment of foreign talent just due to budgetary concerns. So you may take 2 wrestlers from Japan and 2 wrestlers from Mexico. We have a small smattering of regional talent that we start with. This is going to be a 20-pick draft, and you will contract jobbers, so you will not draft them.
All right, so here we are, and we want to give we're going to give a little bit of background about which region we have and what we're looking to do. So, Matt, would you be willing to start us off?
Well, I will, but we should also clarify this isn't like a modern day draft. This is
that's true.
Right.
That's
this
very
is
true.
1993.
We're going way back. It's a set in 1993. We're taking available wrestlers, workers from 1993, and that's basically the wheelhouse. So people who, unfortunately, now in today's age, who have passed away, if they were active in 1993, alive and active, they're on the board.
And I think 1993 is a very interesting year because you kind of have this new generation of talent rising up that's going to play a big role in the later 90s, but you have a lot of these 80s mainstays still kicking around.
There's actually a huge talent pool to pick from. There's people who are kind of active, but they're very, very, very early in their careers. There's people who are kind of established, but not superstars yet. There are people, like you said, from the 80s who are mainstays. There are people like from the early 90s who are kind of just coming into their own. There's foreign talent. There's luchadors. There's some good stuff to pick from. So that's why I was really excited about this. I know who I want. Hopefully I can get them, but there's a lot of talent to pick from here.
There sure is. Now, one other thing. They had to be active in 93, which to at least my heartbreak, and I'm sure others, that means that, for example, Roddy Piper was not an active wrestler for the year of 1993. So none of us can draft him.
Mm-hmm.
But and that really kills me because I really wanted to get Piper.
Oh, he would have been he could have been your main event talent right there.
I think the three of us might have fought pretty tooth and nail to get him, but
yeah,
here we are. So no, just to put that out there, if you look at it, you're like, well, why isn't this person there? The main resource that I have used, oddly enough, has been the PWI Top 500.
Yes.
Because it gives us a nice overview. And I'm not looking at what kind of year everybody had, but it does give us a nice overview of who was active that year. Because with 500 names, that casts a pretty wide net, and even if they were having a down year, they would still be on there.
Yeah, but like we've barely talked to each other, but there's like a specific person I'm going to target in this draft that everyone would go like, well, why did you want him? And when I get to him and I draft him, I will tell you why I drafted him, but there's a very specific reason I want that person. And you're going to run into situations like that where we're not going to necessarily take the best person. We're going to take the person we think is going to work for our promotion, our style.
Yes.
And just maybe we have a good idea for them, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. I figure we will talk about all of the why we're picking them as we do, but let's go ahead and establish our regions and establish kind of what we're looking for. So
yeah, you asked me to do that, and I got sidetracked with the.
Well, no, it was important you filled that stuff in. That was very important.
So I decided to take basically Texas, the state of Texas. I thought that'd be kind of a challenge. I was debating between this and some other states. I think, Shad, I think the regional promotion you're going to do kind of edged into some of the southern states, which my inclination would have always been to choose the southern states.
Yeah.
Just because that's old school NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, that sort of thing is really just my favorite of all time. So
yeah,
I'm glad you kind of did that because it forced me to kind of step out of my wheelhouse. Even though I think once we actually go through my draft picks, I think I'm still kind of edging into the southern style. But
sure,
I took Texas because at least in the 80s with World Class, obviously you had a really, really rapid fan base.
Yeah.
For Texas for wrestling. You still had some in early 90s. We did a show once about the Global Wrestling Federation.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely a market there for them, and it's a big state. Texas, people don't realize how huge Texas is.
Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity there, both with wrestling fans generally, and also if you go the further south you go, you're edging into luchador territory.
Yeah, that's what I think is interesting about Texas, and you saw it in World Class a lot, is you have a really easy pipeline for a stream of talent that no one else can easily get. It's really easy to bring a couple of luchadors in, bring a couple of guys that maybe are more local that wouldn't necessarily go deeper in. I think that gives you a pipeline to a unique set of talent. And I also think it really requires a different touch than a lot of promotions would, because Texas is going to be very much a very rough and tumble style. Brass knuckles championships were a big thing there.
That's funny you say that. Well, I'll get into that.
But yeah, so I think Texas is interesting, and it's just such a large. Like you have Dallas, you have Houston, you have Fort Worth, you have San Antonio, just such a diverse like set of towns and probably like talent expectations. And then you just have all these towns you can run spot shows in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Matt, what kind of what are you looking for here? What kind of promotion are you looking to run?
It's I was kind of sharing with you guys beforehand. My promotion's going to be a little bit weird because it's going to be almost like two promotions in one. There's going to be a lot of really rough and tumble heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of going to be battling it out. That's the booking there would be more towards that. But I do want to have essentially an undercard of lightweight guys, maybe some luchadors, maybe some Japanese talent, but just light heavyweight guys who can really go out there, put on a show, either high flyers or as really good technical wrestlers. Who in time, once they get a little more established, maybe they can start moving up the card and actually, work the heavyweight guys. I think I'm going to try and pick some heavyweight guys who could pair well with anyone. So that's what I'm going to try to go with.
How many titles are you planning on having?
I'm having 3.
Okay.
And I would just have like a heavyweight title and a tag team title, but I'm going to do a kind of an intermediary title. Like middleweight, not a middleweight, but just like a, like your middle title.
Yeah.
Just I think one of you guys suggested that you were going to do like a TV title or something like that.
Yeah, that was.
Should I go through mine?
Go for it.
Just quickly. Yeah, I'm going to do basically like the heavyweight. Are we naming our promotions? Or are we just?
I named mine.
I named mine, but.
All right. I was thinking of calling mine the Lone Star Championship Wrestling.
That's a good name.
I like
just
that name.
Just because it's Texas. I thought about just doing like something simple like Texas Championship Wrestling, but
that gives
since
you
it is
like you almost get what I like about that is you get it almost paints a picture of what the logo looks like in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it's a Lone Star state. Making it Lone Star is making it more regional to Texas, but just it sounds more fun. Maybe there's better chances of marketing it than just saying the Texas heavyweight. But I'm gonna have your heavyweight title, so I guess your Lone Star Heavyweight Championship.
You could also, if you wanted to, because then you could be just ripping off history. You could do like the Texas Heavyweight Championship and like kind of claim some lineage back to.
That's a good thought. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to do of course, a tag team title, tag team championship. You got to have that. And then the kind of middle title that I was going to do, it's not going to be like a TV title or intercontinental title. It's not. So when I say that, I don't mean like the concept behind it isn't like old school WWF/E or like old school NWA WCW, where like the US title was kind of like your I don't know how kind of mid-card title that you put it on. The same concept with Intercontinental title. You put it on guys who you want to make stars, and you might be moving them up to the main event. But even if you don't, you're showcasing them. They're being pushed. They're clearly like you're presenting them as stars. Right. Whether you're going to actually move them to the heavyweight championship picture or not, like you're clearly just pushing them. It's not quite that. It's not guys I'm going to be grooming, but it would be a title that would have some importance to it. And I'm going to do a Brass Knucks championship.
Brass Knucks.
Nice.
Yeah. The concept, though, it's going to be similar to how Brass Knucks championships were in the past. But given this is 1993 and it's a different region, but this chronologically and historically, I guess I should say, this is kind of almost edging into the whole mid to late 90s extreme period where some more aggressive in-ring action was appreciated. My concept is like the Brass Knucks, it wouldn't explicitly be like a hardcore title, but the rules for the Brass Knucks would basically be like all the Brass Knucks championship fights would be no DQ. So that could mean like you're bringing in some weapons, a chair, whatever. but doesn't necessarily have to include that. But it would be at least no DQ.
Okay.
So that would allow for some plunder, maybe some chicanery.
Sure.
So kind of edging into like a hardcore title, but not quite. That's my concept.
All right. That sounds good. I really dig that name too.
I guess that's now that I think about it, it's kind of a little bit unfair to some of the light heavyweights I want to actually draft, but there's not. I'm not really. It's not. I'm not. I wouldn't like strictly hold like a weight requirement. Like a light heavyweight could challenge for the my national heavyweight title. So
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Brad.
Well, my
yours?
promotion is going to be called Great Lakes Championship Wrestling. That's going to give you an idea of the states I'm running, but this is going to be Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and there might be a little weaseling from time to time into like Toronto for a show or two.
Okay.
But
that's a good idea.
So my company is going, because of the region, with a couple of additions, I'm going to make some dubious claims to having the AWA lineage. So I'm going to have the AWA World Title, the AWA World Tag Team titles, and the AWA Television title. Since I have a couple of guys who are we have a couple of regional guys, but I have Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom as part of the region. I will probably have them as the initial tag team champions and claim that they won it back from the Trooper and DJ Peterson at some point.
Okay.
Just to kind of keep the farce up. So this is going to be kind of all Japanish. Probably going to go with some bigger guys, like a stiffer style, but also technically proficient promotion. Probably low level of DQs and countouts. It's going to be like hard hitting action, probably longer matches, but like a focus on clean finishes. And I don't know if technical style is going to be right, because there's probably going to be a lot of bomb throwing and head drops here.
Ooh. Okay. Well, mine. Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry to cut you off, Chad. Brad's explanation makes me worried because there's a couple of guys that I want to draft, which we might be in competition. So
I might veer off into some weird spots that you might not expect.
I about guarantee that I'm going to run into some stiff competition with some of mine, but for me, I am going to my wheelhouse. Appalachian Championship Wrestling will run Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, Tennessee, the Carolinas, and North Georgia. Basically up and down that stretch, and then we'll kind of spread out a little bit from there. I know it would be stepping on Smoky Mountain's toes, but this is fictional. So in this fictional universe, Smoky Mountain's not there. And see, I'm going with I'm dealing with an area that, first of all, loves the wrestling. But then second, there's enough people there who have been through enough rough patches in their life that they know what getting punched looks like. So I'm having to look at trying to keep my hands on some guys that would get a little snug. And then the other thing I'm trying to do is I'm going to try and mix. I want to have a mix of different types of people on the cards, but the main focuses are going to be hard-hitting, tough competitors, and then I'm going to be looking for, as Jerry Jarrett suggested, I'm going to be looking for the good-looking guys that'll draw the girls in, that'll draw guys in. And then one other thing that I'm real serious about doing here is the people that I'm eyeballing to grab are people that I believe would be mobile enough that I could move them up and down the card without much question. So if one week they were second match of the night and then next week they were semi-main, that, you know, there's enough reputation, there's enough legacy behind some of them that won't be a question. And then for others, there's just flat going to be enough skill to do that. So we're all three talking about having some hard hitting folks, and I'm looking at it going, oh hell, because I'm worried about the same kind of thing. I don't have much of an eye on the luchadors, but there are a couple of picks from Japan that I think I might be able to get work in this setting. But probably just one, probably just the one, because if I go more than that doing the same thing, then I kill the heat for one or the other. I'm going to have a heavyweight title. I'm going to have tag titles. My mid-card title is going to be called the challenge title because it gets challenged regularly. There's not a set gimmick that goes with it, but every show, the challenge title is going to be defended regularly. So, if we're doing every TV, there's going to be challenge title somewhere, because in doing that, I can do lots of things to either build guys up by having them have, even if they're barely squeaking out, they're tough enough to persist I can build them up by having them go through just this briar patch of challengers that ought to be tearing them apart, but they keep coming out on top. Or I can have a nice back and forth where there's a best of 7 to determine who the champion's going to be. Or I can just have it be that the challenge title holder is so damn sick of somebody interfering in this stuff that, he offers to throw it in whatever kind of gimmick. This region also gives me the option to use a few more gimmicks you might not otherwise see. So a coal miner's glove match becomes a very viable gimmick in this region. So, it wouldn't carry as much as like a bull rope would in Texas, but if you book that right, then yes, you can absolutely have it make sense.
I like it.
Cool. Okay, so do we want to hit round 1?
Yes, Matt, you got round 1.
All right, I've got round 1, and I'm actually going to go with a tag team. So this will be my first 2 picks, actually.
Okay.
I'm going to go straight for some heavy hitters here, guys. And I don't know, I wouldn't think that they would entirely necessarily fit with a Texas. They're not exactly like, these guys aren't exactly like Texas guys.
Yeah. But
they're so damn good, and they can have matches with just about anyone. And certainly in 1993, they could have matches with literally any person in the world. I'm going to go Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers.
Damn. They're on the top of my team tag list.
Really? I figured. And they probably are the top of everyone's tag team list.
Yeah, they were at the top of mine.
Yeah, I knew I had to take. That's why I had to take them first.
Hey, credit to you, man. That's a great pick. That's great. I can't argue with that. I mean, heck, I was like, oh man. He starts talking. I'm like, oh crap, that's the Steiners, isn't it?
Yeah, I knew as soon as you said that.
I had to, just because they're so good, and it's like, even though I'm trying to work like a Texas gimmick where it's like, rough guys, like they can have rough matches with anyone. I mean,
yeah, they'd be fine, I think.
I see them throw enough dudes around.
I was hoping they would fall to me, but there was one I really wanted, and he had to come first. So
yeah.
I was hoping they would last for at least a round or 2.
Yeah, well, I've got at least like probably 10 other guys that I want that I'm afraid aren't going to be taken. So it might the worm might turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
And they can obviously be like they will be the linchpin of my tag team division. I'm trying to pick guys that either are part of a tag team or could easily fit into a tag team. They could have like great matches with them, but I mean, you could literally take any team and put them against the Steiners, and if you can match.
All right. Well, Brad, that means it falls to you. Who is your first pick?
Well, I am going to go with my main heel property, I think, right off the bat. He's going to fit my territory really well. Big Van Vader is my first pick.
That's a great one.
That's a good pick. I was so tempted to have Vader on my list, but I was sitting here and I was going, they're going to get him before me. I ain't going to get Vader.
I was hoping Matt
what?
wasn't going to take him because I have my top face and my top heel figured out, and like my top face is going to be a little down. Like I don't think he's going to be a top pick for anyone. Because he's a little washed at this point, but he has some years left in him. But yeah, so Vader I really wanted because you can almost put anyone in there with Vader. Like the top face doesn't even matter because you have that top heel property. He has history in the area. He has that legit sports background. And if you're wanting to set like a technically proficient, hard-hitting promotion, like you need your top guy to kind of epitomize that style, and it's Vader.
Yeah, and I would say we're doing fantasy now, so in theory we could just assume that in 1993 it's they're just perfectly healthy and still very competent. But if we actually want to try and compare it to actual historical reality, like Vader was on fire in 1993. He was so good. He still had a lot of good years left in him. The WWF years weren't great.
No, but he went to like All Japan in '99 and tore it up.
Oh yeah, and then he was with Pro Wrestling Noah and still had great matches. So
yeah,
it was still there. But yeah, 1993 was a particularly fantastic year for him. It wasn't. I think that was the year that we had like the Sting Vader series or some of those matches.
I think it was winding down at that point. But yeah, that was.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I am at the end of the line, so that means that I am going to be picking two. The first one I'm picking is going to be someone who, like I said, he's very mobile on the card. He's also got the kind of offense that could lay it in enough that it would fit. And he has history with the region that I'm in. So that means that my first pick is going to be Randy Savage.
Oh, good one.
That is a good one. I was hoping he would come around to the second round for me.
Yeah. He's too good and too versatile for me to not pick up. I can't not pick up Randy Savage if he's on the table. Now, I'm in this spot in my second one that what do I want? What am I looking for? Do I want to pick my top face or my top heel? And since Savage can be either one, Savage is so versatile, I do want to have some people on my card that can be just fiery white meat baby faces, which means, I'm sorry, Matt, I'm going to have to pick a perennial favorite, and I'm going to have to take Sting. So
I didn't have him on my list as the main guy, but he's, of course, on my list as an alternate.
Yeah.
That's a great pick. I think, you can't go wrong.
No, having those two, you can team them, you can feud them. The only thing that you can't do with the two of them is have Sting go heel because it just doesn't work.
No.
But now I've got to wait and hope that one of my top heels is available whenever it comes back around. So I think the ball passes back to you, Brad.
Okay, well, this would have been my spot. Randy Savage, I was hoping would fall because he had a little bit of an off year at this point. But so I'm going to take, I guess, my top face for the promotion. So I'm going to pencil in Bret Hart for my number 2 pick, which will help me when I want to do some incursions into Canada. He doesn't necessarily fit the hard-hitting style, but he's technical. He can adapt. I think he's a good foil for Vader at the top of the card. Like I said, and he's got a lot of history in the region. I think he's like a positive draw for the most part. Really a guy you can't go wrong with. And he's really a guy that anyone you bring in is going to be a good fit for him.
Yeah.
Another very versatile pick.
Yeah.
And he can flip back and forth that face heel dynamic too.
That's very true.
So that's a great pick. That really is.
I actually feel like even though you're trying to go with like an All Japan hard hitting style, I actually think Bret Hart would have worked really well in All Japan, considering
I think so.
They had talent there who were very technical, and I actually feel like geographically he would actually work well like in the in the Midwest, like the upper Midwest. And
Yeah, I
of course
think
you
so
do have
too.
that
And
Canadian
like
connection, yeah.
he really because Canada would be more of a concern for me than you guys. He
Mm-hmm.
really gives me that entryway, especially since territorially, like the AWA and like Detroit and stuff would, kind of sneak into Canada a little bit. It gives me some versatility to do that, and he'll draw me houses there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then, so for Matt's second pick, he took Rick Steiner, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's going to snake back around, so Matt gets his third pick.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's right, because we each at this point have had two
Yeah.
picks. Okay. Okay. I have a question which would affect my pick, because I would contemplate picking two people as a tag team.
Okay.
But is it? I need a clarification on the rules. Is it people who regularly
If
work
they have
together
some
as a
history
tag
of a
team?
tag team, or you can justify it that they won a title one time, I would say it's fine.
That's fair.
Would they have to have won a title?
If they tagged enough that you could justify it. Well, let's just say who you're thinking, and then we'll decide.
What about if they were part of a stable together, and they would team together as part of that stable, but I don't think.
Are you thinking about Rick and Arn?
I'm thinking of Arn and another person.
Damn.
If you're thinking about it around 93, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
You allow it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think there can be a logical connection, just because they were stablemates, and they did tag team occasionally. I think even like 92, 93. I was going to pick two picks, so that would be my third or fourth. I was going to pick Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton.
Oh, they won titles together.
Oh.
Oh, they did? I don't think they actually won a title. I thought
I would count them as a
I think it was
team.
Arn and Zbyszko. Oh no, wait, I'm looking it up. You're right. They did win a title together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, all right then. That works out. I pick Arn and Bobby because I think those two could absolutely have fantastic matches with the Steiners, and they could also be linchpins for my tag division. And I think both of them are such good workers.
Where I think they're brilliant for your promotion is if you want Hosses and lightweights, they can work Hosses really well, but then you can weave them around and they work lightweights exceptionally well too. Like they can do
absolutely,
both.
especially Bobby Eaton.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about Bobby Eaton a lot, but Bobby Eaton, I would argue, is criminally underrated.
Oh God, yes.
Oh,
Probably because
he's the best. I think he legitimately could be the greatest offensive wrestler of all time.
He kind of gets forgotten about just because I think
he
was
talk.
more of a. Well, yeah, he didn't talk.
You know where I loved him though is when we watched that SMW show, Bluegrass Brawl, when they were doing that like clusterfuck main event, and all these guys are brawling, and like Eaton's just doing comedy like in the middle of the ring, like he gets like a tire put on his head, like his pants are falling down. And, like, there's just all this carnage, and then there's just Bobby Eaton doing comedy in the middle of it. Like, it was so, like, brilliant.
He was in tag teams, like, most of his career. And he was always kind of given short thrift, even though he did have a bunch of singles titles. But he was in stables. You could put him with a stable, he would work. Like, you could put him in so many different things, and he would work. He was an absolutely fantastic wrestler.
And like,
so versatile.
People haven't even seen some of his best stuff, like his tag team with like Coco Ware as Sweet Brown Sugar. Like, there are people that swear that like are big Memphis fans that's like his best tag work.
It probably is. I mean, he just is so good, like a consummate worker. Like he's the guy that other wrestlers, other workers, because he's not flashy. He certainly didn't try and showboat or take away from his opponents, but he's the guy like other wrestlers would be like, oh no, Bobby Eaton's like the best. Much like nowadays people talk about like workers or talk about like Christian, like, oh, Christian's like one of the best workers. And I'm not hating on Christian because their explanations as to why, like, I think are appropriate. Like, he is a guy who's just very, very technically good and does make his opponents look good. He feeds well. He can sell. But that was Bobby Eaton back in the day. Like, Bobby Eaton could do all of that, and just everything would look crisp. And Bobby Eaton, super underrated, one of the best damn punches in wrestling. Oh man, his punches were so snug and tight.
The first night I was in wrestling, I was in the locker room with Bobby Eaton, and I should have just asked him very politely, Mr. Eaton, could you please, I'm just getting started, could you please help me with, working out my working punches? Because, I had a martial arts boxing background, so I kept gimmicking my punches up enough because I was afraid that I was just going to absolutely rock somebody.
Yeah.
And, I should have. God, I should have.
You should have.
I think isn't his rep that he's like,
that's why he kept his job
super
first.
Nice.
No, they said legitimately he kept his job to WCW almost all the way to the end because he was such a nice guy and everyone loved him so much that no one wanted to fire him.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't they gave him an office gig so that they wouldn't have to fire him?
I mean, that says something when Eric Bischoff, who wasn't shy about firing people, kept him. But he's the example I use for people, and it's like, see, this is what being a nice person and being agreeable to be around gets you, like, as, like, employment chances. So I guess I'm up next.
Yep, you sure are.
So I'm going to go a little afield here, but he does fit my promotion still. With my third pick, am going to take Kurt Hennig.
Damn.
That's a solid pick.
So now where he fits in this really well is great worker. He can face and heel it really well. And is Vader's probably always going to be a heel, but Hennig and Hart can kind of intermix being heel or face and fit towards the top. And because it's, an AWA region, Hennig was the world champion there. He has a lot of history. Great talker. Again, he's kind of that property you can build around, even at this point in his career.
Yeah.
That's such a good pick. I had him on my list for so many of those reasons. Damn. Okay. Oh, God, that's good. I guess that's to me now, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I had mentioned that, I needed hard-bitten, hard brawler types. I needed guys who would get snug and that sort of stuff because of the desires of the region, which means my third pick is going to go to one of our favorite hosses. It's going to go to Stan Hansen.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he was on my list. He's in my top 10.
So Arn was in mine. So.
Oh, well. Yeah, I told you the worm was going to turn.
I know, right? And so, I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to say my promotion needs to be this way, because I had considered, would it be Hansen or Vader? And I love Vader, don't get me wrong. And, I had a half-hour conversation with him at a convention once. Great time with him, that sort of stuff. But given what I'm looking for and what I'm looking to do, I just thought Hansen would be a better fit, which meant Vader would have been an alternative for me, which meant I wasn't going to get him because I knew that wasn't going to happen. Now,
yeah, it's hard when
here I am.
It's hard when you have that guy that's like your dream pick, but he's probably not going to last long enough to fall to you when you need your when you have your pieces you need early.
Hansen also fits the versatility criteria I really wanted because Stan Hansen could work face or heel. Stan Hansen fighting anybody on the card makes sense because he would just rumble with whoever. And, here we go. Now I'm left going, what am I going to try and pick up next? Who am I going to try and eyeball for my next spot? And so I'm in this place where the picks that I wanted, that I really wanted to have, the way I had it planned out, I don't know that I have the full access to it. So now I'm on a coin flip between two guys because I also I've got to have some guys that are good looking enough to get attention. and I got to have guys who are, and I mean, I've only got 3 picks, but I've got one of those so far, which means I think I'm going to go with someone who I'm going to check real quick, because I think he was on the up and coming at this point. Let me look at it. Yeah, he was getting into his swing. He was really getting going here. And I'm going to take a risk and pick up, oddly, another one that really probably ought to be in Matt's promotion, but I'm going to draft Dustin Rhodes.
Oh, god damn you. Oh man.
I was just about to take him and Barry Windham as a tag team.
Sorry, Matt.
I too was gonna take both of them as a tag team.
Yeah, sorry about that, but that's
Pain.
like I said, he can go anywhere. He could tag with Hanson. He could tag with Sting. He could tag with Savage. He was a young, good-looking guy. He was really hitting his stride. Good baby face, good strikes. He had everything I was looking for. So.
This hurts.
That's the beauty of the draft, though, isn't it?
Yes.
I guess that goes back to Brad.
For my 4th pick, I am going to take another big guy. I'm going to take Ray Traylor.
Ooh.
So not a guy I actually was contemplating, but that's a solid pick.
So good worker, hard hitter, face or heel. He's a good foil for actually the other 3 guys I have so far, and I think he's feuded with at least Vader and Hennig. I don't think he ever feuded with Hart.
I don't know that he did, but that's a really solid pick.
Mm-hmm.
So then Matt, for his 4th pick, took Bobby Eaton, so we're weaseling around for the 5th pick. So Matt, you're on the board.
This is tough. I hate to keep doing this, but I actually might pick another tag team just to get a couple guys.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted Stan Hansen. Dustin Rhodes was going to be a linchpin. And picking a tag team, I might lose out on 1 or 2 other guys that I want, but I'll just do that, which would be my 5th and 6th pick.
Yeah.
And I might be affecting Brad here. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna do a tag team, the Miracle Violence Connection, Steve Williams and Terry Gordy.
Those are great picks for the region.
Yeah, Steve Williams and Terry both worked in. Well, Terry didn't know worked in Texas.
I think
Did Steve Williams work?
He worked in Oklahoma. He might have done some Texas stuff with when he did. I think he did Houston when Watts was like giving talent for that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Williams was in UWF, so he would have gotten into the area a bit at least.
Well, I guess I'm up on the board then.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
I would.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm sorry, man, but that was. Anyway, let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be really, really clever with my remaining picks. Let's see.
Okay, well,
I've got my 5th and 6th. You're
okay.
Who's up next? I've lost track now. Okay.
So
are we still on pick number 5 or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to get on the board here with the tag team. So I'm going to go a little older, but still have a couple good years in them. They probably won't be my top tag team. Well, they'll probably be my top face tag team. So I'm going to take Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson to kind of cement my tag team division around. Like these are probably guys will only stay like a year or so to kind of get things off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But
look, those guys are still having matches. At least they were as of like 2020. So they're going to be around if you want them to.
Oh man. Yeah, that's Matt. Just so you know, the tag teams that I had listed, 3 of the 4 are gone now. So that my tag division is shot. God, that's a good pickup. Oh, does that mean it falls to me, right?
Yep, you're up next.
Okay. So, let's see. Big, wanting the hard hitting. I'm wanting the stuff. I want a little bit of difference, and I'm gonna go for someone who. I think I'm gonna go for somebody who really had success as a heel, and brings some size, brings a lot of talent. We talked about, brings some legitimacy to throw hands whenever it comes in. So this is probably a dark horse pick on my part, but I'm going to pull John Tenta, Earthquake.
Whoa.
Okay, that's not a bad pick.
Because, first of all, doing the Earthquake gimmick is a really good way to get heat and that sort of stuff. He was always real capable. You put someone over him, that's going to be a big deal for them. And now I'm looking because I'm trying to figure who am I gonna use here? Am I gonna go for versatility, or am I gonna go for someone who's? I'm gonna gamble. This is gonna be my oddball round. But I'm gonna gamble because my next pick is going to be someone else who's very versatile. Brings something very different than what we've seen, but also has a history in the area, which means that I'm going to pull Cactus Jack.
He was on my list.
For running an Appalachian promotion, I've pulled like 3 Texas gimmick guys.
Yeah.
He worked in the USWA though, so he has history.
Smoky Mountain, so he knows how to do it. But that's where I'm at. I'm just like, I'm looking for that versatility. I'm looking for that hard hitting, and I'm looking to have variance in my roster because I don't want 2 people doing the same thing.
Okay, well, then the rest of round 6 picked already because I took Robert Gibson. Matt took Terry Gordy, so we are at pick 7.
On Matt, I believe.
Yep, Matt's up.
Okay. Cactus Jack was not in my top 10, but he was definitely on my list. Since he's been mentioned, I should probably just take him while I can. I'm gonna go Barry Windham.
Okay.
Because Barry, I think, would pair really well. He's a great worker. You can have him as face or heel. He could be either one, and like top level either one. So
yeah,
I'm gonna go with Barry Windham.
Barry Windham's a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little weird here. Well, it won't be weird when people hear it. So I took my top face tag team. You can kind of see what I'm building here. So I'm gonna kind of build my heel tag team to kind of counteract my faces here. So I'm going to take Ming and the Barbarian.
Ooh. The Faces of Fear. Plus someone who keeps the locker room from getting too rowdy.
And you could also, there's stable building possibilities with like Vader if you get the right manager and stuff.
Sure.
This is a really weird, not a segue, but more of like a non sequitur. But have you guys seen the show Freakazoid?
Yep.
Yeah.
You remember that show? For those who don't, who aren't aware of it, it was like late 90s, I think.
It was mid 90s. It was like
mid-90s.
one of the first WB cartoons when they like started doing Saturday morning.
Yeah, followed up off Animaniacs.
If you go back, it's very kind of dated because it's like early internet days humor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was kind of superhero themed, but Freakazoid had a sidekick, Cosgrove, who was Cop, voiced by Ed Asner.
They had Fanboy. He had that like fat guy with a cape that did nothing.
Yeah.
Be annoying. Cosgrove would just show up and want to like get like food.
Yeah.
And then give him advice. Cosgrove was Ed Asner, I think.
Yes, he's voiced by Ed Asner, and it was really funny because sometimes like the bad guys would be doing stuff, or there would be some sort of like shenanigans going on, And he would just like, he's this big fat gruff like cop, and he would just go, "Hey, cut it out, cut it out."
Or it'd
And
be like,
people, they would just like, "Oh, okay,"
or it'd be like,
sheepishly stop it.
or it'd be like, the Lobe's about to blow up City Hall. Nothing could stand in my way. Like, hey, Freakazoid, want to go get a soda? It's like, okay.
Yeah. And then even like one episode, he actually did it to the Animaniacs and stopped them. I'm only bringing that up because like Ming is basically like the humanoid like Cosgrove, real life Cosgrove. He probably could just be like, "Hey, cut it out," and people would be like, "Okay."
No, they said like he was like a really easygoing guy, but people would always screw with him. Like they
Really?
said he never started anything. Like it was always other people that started stuff with him.
Why would you tempt fate? Why would you do that?
Cause like
Some people have a death wish like that.
I think the story they always tell is he beat up like 3 or 4 Marines in a bar one night. And they started it.
Yeah. There's just so many stories about Ming that you just don't mess with Ming.
Yeah.
It's never a good idea.
That's a good pick.
It is a good pick.
And there's a lot of mileage out of both guys at this point too. A lot of mileage.
Sure. They got long runs ahead of them.
And this is the same year where like Big Boss Man and Barbarian had that like great match. No, it might have been the year before. He like Barbarian and Boss Man had that like just awesome Royal Rumble match that one year. So yeah, and they work great with small guys because there's that WrestleMania 7 opener with Ming and Barbarian against the Rockers, and it's great.
Oh, it is good. It's really good.
Yeah. Ooh. Now I'm looking because I've got some picks I want to get, but I really need to have a cornerstone on my tag division.
You have some, not trying to put you in anything, but you do have a couple of low-hanging fruit guys that are regional specific.
Who are you thinking of? And I'm looking at my list.
Lawler and Jarrett are very, very region specific. They did tag. You have Gilbert's hanging around. You have Tracy Smothers hanging out there. The Heavenly Bodies are still on the table.
Yeah, they are, and you're right. But I am in a place of, because I'm really thinking about kind of the central tenet that I wanted. It was that I needed that hard hitting aspect to it, right? Because that's just been such a big deal. But I've also picked up a lot of guys who are versatile and capable and stuff like that, and can flip back and forth, which means I do want to have a.
And see, in the tag team that'd be perfect for you, you shouldn't draft until later because, like, if I was you, I'd be eyeing like Ron and Don Harris as the Bruise Brothers, but you can probably get them in like the bottom 10. So.
Yeah, that's well, I'll go ahead and tell you who I'm thinking here, and someone's gonna swear here in a second, but I believe my next 2 picks are just gonna be the Road Warriors.
That's a good pick.
That's a fairly solid pick.
Because then I get to have the hard hitting aspect. I get to have the flip back and forth aspect. I get to have the can they be face or heel? Can they work with about anybody? Sure, they can do all of that.
And you have a bigger roster size wise.
Yeah, well, Hanson, everybody on my.
Yeah, you have a very big. Randy Savage is your only little guy. Like Matt and I kind of have a mix, but you're very like heavy so far.
I've got some size, yeah. And here's the thing, is Brad told the story on there. The Ohio Valley with Mark Henry doing the feats of strength, and that big raw-boned hillbilly pulled one of them off. If I'm gonna have the storytelling of guys being rough and tumble and hard hitting and stuff like that, feel like I'm in the part of the country where there are going to be more people they're going to need that kind of size to buy into it a little more. You cross over into the Carolinas and probably not as much. But, I'm not trying to be like Vince here. I'm not trying to be a body guy, but I'm trying to go for talented, hard-hitting types.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So then that'll weasel back to me. I picked the Barbarian. So, Matt,
Yep.
you're up with 2 picks.
I'm 2 picks?
Yeah, because your tag team's finally... Well, you finally didn't take a tag team, so you have your snake pick available.
So which numbers would this be? I think
So
it's
this would be
8, 9.
the last
8 and
pick
9?
of 8 and the first pick of 9.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to have to go with alternates for some of the guys that I picked. But I've heard names thrown out, so I'm just going to try and take them. For my number 8, I'm going to actually pick Jeff Jarrett.
He has a history there because of USWA Dallas. That's a good can work both guys. He also is a little smaller at this point in his career, so he can get away with wrestling bigger guys, but he can also get away with some messing around with light guys too.
Yeah, another guy who's also really underrated as a worker. Can work both face and heel. Good technical wrestler. He could work with those hosses and actually put on good matches. He could probably work with the lighter guys and actually put on good stuff. I would probably have him initially as like a heel, maybe, or make him a face. But he's a solid pick. And then a guy who I didn't have actually on my list. I had to choose him as like an alternate, but obviously has great potential down the road. But at this point, was not achieving the greatness that he would later. But Steve Austin, stunning. Steve
That's
Austin.
a good pick.
Yeah.
I was going to pick Stan Hansen, but I'm sliding him into that pick because now that I think about it, Steve Austin's from Texas, and at this point, he was in the Stunning Steve route, but he could transition to a harder style, kind of more like Stone Cold, but could work as a heel, could work as a face. Great worker.
Yeah. Those are great picks. I was kind of eyeing Jarrett myself for the exact reasons you said, and when we talked about that last bash at the beach, just highlighting how just good White Spangly Jarrett was as a heel. Like those are great. Those are great. Austin was on my list too. All right, Brad, I think it comes back to you.
So, just kind of keeping with like what I've got here, I am actually going to take Ron Simmons with my 9th pick.
He was on my list.
So what I like about this is he can do face or heel. He'll probably be face here, but he works so well with everyone here. He can wrestle Vader, Bret Hart, Kurt Hennig, Ray Traylor, Ming Barbarian. Like he can go toe to toe with those guys. He can do whatever you need him to do. He can even slot in as like your world champion if you want him to. Just great guy great utility guy, I think. He can be mid card. He can be main event. You can slide him into a tag team with an up and comer.
That's a great pick.
Yeah.
He was on my list. Ron would have fit really well into my the promotion I was actually putting together.
He would have been a good Texas guy, I think.
Yeah, he would have been. That's solid. That's a solid pick.
That is,
I don't think he never did. He was in WCW at the time, but if you actually want a fantasy book or just fantasize about it, like Ron Simmons would have probably done really, really well in like early 90s All Japan.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, he would have fit in right with those guys. Like he was a big rough and tumble guy. Like he could have fit well with those hosses. He could have been power slamming dudes.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So Shad, you are up on the board.
And these are my last 2 picks. And I'm in this place where it's like, okay, what am I gonna have? Because Brad's right. I do need some homegrown talent that'll hook people in. A local draw. And then I am considering, is there my 10th pick? I'm going back and forth about what pick am I going to have? Is it going to be this pick, or am I going to go to one of my out of the country picks? But first, we're just going to go ahead and have Jerry Lawler in the 9th slot for the talker. It's Lawler was just like, there's so many people that only know Lawler from commentary, but seriously, Lawler's honestly just so good. And people know Lawler. People are King of Memphis, all that kind of stuff. So having Lawler around, again, works with about anybody. He also brings the ability to do some goofy comedy stuff here in a way that I'm not gonna that other people on the card don't have. So that's why I'm gonna pick him. But my last pick, I think I'm gonna go with another person who is really successful in the region and fills Jerry Jarrett's advice. You got to have the attractive guys, who's very versatile, capable of doing a lot of stuff. And I think that's going to be Stan Lane.
Ooh.
I debated so hard on who it was going to be. And, going to be Stan Lane.
And you have a lot of tag options for him, because you could bring Candido. Well, no, I don't think he teamed with Candido. I'm thinking you could bring Tom Pritchard in. You could bring Steve Kern in. There's some choices for tagging him.
He's good enough and versatile enough that I could slap him in with a bunch of other people on it. Stan Lane and Dustin Rhodes as a rough, the good-looking Young Guns team would totally be a doable thing.
Yeah.
But all right, so now I'm done.
Yep. For this episode, Brad, you're done because folks, we're coming back next week. We're gonna do the next 10 to finish our draft off. So for my last pick of this show, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a tweener guy that's kind of between like upper mid card and mid card. I'm gonna use him to kind of counterbalance. Like, I'm a little heavy on size and a little heavy on brawling, so I'm going to get a technical guy, some guy that's going to add some flash and pizzazz to the shows. Also a good talker, and will be memorable. So with my 10th pick, I'm taking Too Cold Scorpio.
Oh, he was on my list. Damn.
That's such a good pick.
And so so where I think he works really well for me is he can have great matches with Vader. Like, those are just going to be nuts. Same thing with Ray Traylor. You can 6-man him with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. He can tag with Bret Hart here and there. He could tag with Ron Simmons. Then you can flip Bret Hart and Kurt Hennig heel, and then they can have good matches with him. Like, he just works all up and down the card. And he can be like a mainstay of the mid-card title. And, he can be a tag title holder. He can challenge, and even if you feel like a little nuts, you can give him like a transitional world title reign. Like, he really works well.
I'm sorry, Brad, I'm stepping on you, but he brings an element that nobody else on your roster has too.
Yep.
In his flying capability.
Yep. He does.
That's a solid pick. All right, Matt.
Dan, that was a good pick. He was not in my top 10, but he would have been in my number 11 through 20. He would have been on that list.
My picks have kind of shifted over time as I've seen who's still like available and like what I start wanting.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for my number 10 pick, I'm going to go with a guy who obviously would have a lot of potential down the road, given what he did with his career, but is a guy who is at least billed as a Texas guy, but also was kind of just coming into his own. Smaller guy, so you could put him with the Haas's. I mean, he's had fantastic matches with bigger dudes, but you could also have him work some of the light heavyweight guys, and I'm going to draft him the tail end of my draft. but Shawn Michaels,
Ooh.
hailing from San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
And that's a guy who he could have, well, since I've drafted him, like he could have fantastic matches with Austin. Like you could have him as a face or heel. I mean, he did both. You could have him do a whole series with Jeff Jarrett. Like there's a lot of potential there.
Yep. Definitely.
That's a solid pick. And you know what his upside is. So you know what that can come to and how good that can be. So that's that's just solid all the way around.
So let's review our first 10 rounds here, and then we can kind of talk about what we each have before we sign off for this episode. So Matt took Scott and Rick Steiner, Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton, Steve Williams and Terry Gordy, Barry Windham, Jeff Jarrett, Steve Austin, and Shawn Michaels. I think Matt has an interesting top-heavy tag division right now.
Yes.
He's got 3 good tag teams there, and I think he could wrangle around some makeshift stuff if he wanted to for a 4th team. I think you're a little lacking for like that hot top of the card property, but like you could be more of a tag team territory, and I think Barry Windham can carry you as far as like your main champion for a couple years.
Yeah, because by that time I could try and build up like someone like Steve Austin.
And Michaels is almost there. He needs like another year, and Jarrett's I think fine for a younger property.
Yeah.
See, a tag team heavy territory is something I would probably love it, because I love good tag wrestling. Good tag wrestling has so many more options for you to play with that you can just do so much with it, because you've got at least twice the people, even more if you throw in managers. And so even if you have a series of matches between the same teams, the matches don't have to look the same.
Well, I guess Steve Williams you could slot in there like for your world champion too. Because I think Gordy at this point in his career, like you're not gonna trust him much outside of like tag action just because of his limitations. But Steve Williams you can do a lot with. Arn can kind of get out there and challenge and stuff too. I don't know if I would necessarily put my top title on him, but he can definitely do everything around that.
I think the only guys you have, Matt, that might be pigeonholed into being tag guys is Gordy and the Steiners. And it's not that the Steiners can't do single stuff, but they're just so good as a tag team.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I actually feel like a guy like Scott Steiner could break away and be like a main event guy. I mean, because he did. And you have both Williams and Gordy both had like the All Japan Triple Crown Championship, so those guys could actually be moved up to the main event. And maybe they're not going to be like your main guy for 2-3 years, but you could definitely slot them into like the heavyweight scene. They can maybe hold the title for a little bit. Like I think I got options.
Yeah, you do.
I agree with you.
So then my picks so far, I have Big Van Vader, Bret Hart, Kurt Hennig, Ray Traylor, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Ming the Barbarian, Ron Simmons, and Too Cold Scorpio. So I think I have a fairly coherent... I think if you look at my roster so far, you kind of have a fairly coherent kind of idea that forms in your head of like, well, these guys are probably going to slot in here. These are going to be your early feuds and stuff. So I think mine has that. Where I think I'm gonna have to start drafting is my mid card's really kind of light. Like I think you have like Ming the Barbarian, Ron Simmons, and Too Cold Scorpio are kind of like straddling that upper mid card line. And Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson are kind of to give me that face tag team, but they're kind of aging at this point, so I don't know past like a year or two what I'd do with them.
Well, and I don't and this is not to bag on the guy because he's part of one of the best tag teams of all time, but I don't know how much of an upside Robert Gibson would have in the single run.
No, I
Like
don't
if you
think
had
so
Morton and Gibson doing, they were still the team, but if they were doing single stuff for a while, like I said, I don't. Morton does. I mean, he had that a few times, but I don't know how much Gibson would have on that.
Yeah. So then for Shad's roster, we have Randy Savage, Sting, Stan Hansen, Dustin Rhodes, John Tenta, Cactus Jack, Animal Hawk, Jerry Lawler, and Stan Lane. So when I look at your roster, I kind of see Randy Savage and Sting in their revolving door of big guys that are probably trying to beat them up.
In one way or another, yeah. Well, because Savage or Sting, the guys just about anybody on this list, I could put in a main event and not sweat about it. I don't feel like it would be a stretch for it. Dustin is the scrappy guy going at the top. Okay. Earthquake up there. Okay. Savage, Sting, Hansen would probably be mainstays up high. Cactus is so good at working with everybody that it would work. Lawler would be like Stan Lane might be my upper mid card kind of mainstay guy. But I can't really argue with what you're saying. Savage and Sting, and then the Monster Squad a little bit. Well, no, Dustin's not. But
yeah.
But I mean, heck, if I'm going to build around two guys facing down the odds, Savage and Sting, I feel like are pretty good picks for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Savage can work heel too if you get bored of what your options are. And I mean, honestly, Tenna and Cactus. Well, Tenna can do face. I don't know if I would quite do Cactus as a face at this point in his career, unless like you kind of do the whole he's a jerk and a masochist, but he's our jerk and masochist, like
if
that
you
kind
were
of
to
thing.
If you were to throw Cactus at Stan Hansen, and Hansen's just rocking him, but he just keeps getting up, or do it with Tenta, then you can. I feel it would be like the build of Cactus versus Vader. It's like these two hard hitters just keep knocking him down. And he just keeps coming back, and I could build him up for that, and then maybe have him make a save to help Dustin out or something, and bring him around on that. But he would probably lean more heelish.
I think the Cactus Jack character works better as a heel. Like, I think you want, like, Mankind or Dude Love works better as, like,
there's no
face.
There's no question, but later Mankind, not early Mankind.
But I think he serves a really nice purpose too. I think he makes a really good transitional champion if you're just trying to get from point A to point B. Like, hey, Cactus Jack beats Sting because I'm gonna weasel around here for a month and then put it on Randy Savage because I have some ideas I want to do with him as champion. So I think he really he serves that purpose better than I think Hansen or Tenta does as far as being like a transitional guy.
Yeah. Hansen and Tenta are mountains you have to climb.
And I think the other thing with where Cactus Jack is good for that is you can job Jack quite frequently and he won't lose anything, whereas I think you kind of have to protect Tenna and Hansen to a degree.
To a degree. I'll agree with that.
And Cactus kind of can get himself back just on...
He'll get himself over. That'll... Yeah. That won't be a problem. But. So
what we're going to do is we have 10 rounds and we have a supplemental manager round. We're going to do those next week.
Yep.
And we will recap our picks for you then, and then we might have some more talk about this. And then what we'll probably do is every couple of months we'll check in and kind of give do an overview episode here and there and just say, hey, okay, so we're going to take like this probably we'll do like quarterly recaps and just be like, hey, this is kind of what we do, like a big picture, like, hey, this is what happened in our promotion.
little
every
fantasy booking to go
yeah.
with our draft.
Nothing. We're not going to get in depth and do like blow by blow TV. It's going to be more like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how this angle worked, like that sort of thing.
Sure. All right. Well, everybody, we would love to hear from you. What do you think of our picks? Do you think that there's something we're missing out on? Is there something we need to pick up? We would love to hear from you on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And so, this is Shad with Matt and Brad. We've been in 3 quarters. You're in the 4th. And we will see you next time.